When I inherited my grandparents' $900,000 estate, I quietly moved everything into a trust. Last week, my brother showed up with my mom, smirking. "The house is in my name. You're out by Friday." I just smiled and said, "You really think I'd let that happen?" 2 days later, they came back with movers and froze when they saw who was standing on the porch holding the legal folder that changed everything. My name is Aiden, and at 32, I was the designated quiet one, the agreeable one, the one most of my family assumed would simply roll over when things got messy. I used to be that person, perhaps, but when my grandparents passed, leaving their entire estate, the historic Victorian house, the savings, the nearly $900,000 in shares, to me, something fundamental shifted inside. I started to pay attention. I started to listen more closely. And, most importantly, I started to plan because I knew the true nature of the people I was related to. My brother, Tyler, 3 years my junior, was the antithesis of me: flashy, loud, charismatic. He was the kind of guy who could lie to your face and still talk you into loaning him $5,000 for a sure investment. He'd gotten away with so much over the years: credit cards opened in mom's name, a borrowed car that vanished without a trace, and every single time, mom bailed him out, insisting he was just figuring things out. Meanwhile, I was always expected to be the responsible one, the backup plan, the safety net. I was done playing that role. Grandpa passed 2 years ago, a year after Grandma, and he left the estate solely to me. It wasn't a surprise. I had been their unwavering caretaker, the only one who bothered to call, much less visit. I drove them to appointments, handled groceries, managed the never-ending paperwork. Tyler, on the other hand, would surface for Christmas morning, pose for an Instagram photo, and then vanish until the next holiday. But when the will was read, and my name was the only one on it, I saw the tight-lipped, disappointed twist of mom's face, as if I had stolen something that wasn't rightfully mine. That was the moment I realized a storm was brewing. The house was the crown jewel of the estate, a gorgeous old Victorian, deep red bricks, tall windows, ivy clinging to its sides like something from a classic film. It was a historic property, passed down through 3 generations, kept in near-perfect condition by my grandparents. The neighborhood had exploded in value over the last decade, with every surrounding house gutted and flipped. My grandparents, however, had held firm, and now it was mine. I didn't move in immediately. I kept my apartment across town and quietly began to put my plan into motion. I had the house appraised, consulted an estate attorney, and set up an irrevocable trust with myself as the trustee, placing the entire property, its title, assets, and savings within its protective legal walls. I even moved the utilities under a business name tied to the trust, incurring extra fees that I willingly paid. I knew my family too well. I knew they would try something. I didn't tell anyone, not Tyler, not mom, no one. I kept the original deed in a secure location, a secret safeguard. For a while, it was quiet. Too quiet. Tyler occasionally texted, asking if he could use the pool. The house didn't have one. Mom dropped subtle hints about the unfairness of leaving everything to just one person. "Your brother was always Grandpa's favorite, you know," she'd say, as if that trumped legal documentation or genuine care. I simply nodded, changed the subject, letting them believe I was naive, that I hadn't taken precautions. The tension finally boiled over last month. Tyler started posting vague, self-aggrandizing stories on social media. Big things coming, next chapter loading, that kind of predictable nonsense. Then, one Saturday, as I was tending to the landscaping at the house, mom's car pulled into the driveway. Tyler hopped out first, all grins and sunglasses, as if arriving at a photo shoot. Mom followed, clutching a clipboard, a self-satisfied smile plastered on her face, like she was about to cut a ribbon on a new property development. "Hey, man," Tyler said, clapping me on the shoulder, "we've got some news." I merely raised an eyebrow. "We," Mom interjected, stepping forward, spoke to a lawyer. "It turns out the house should have gone to both of you. Your grandfather made a mistake not updating the will after your grandmother passed. But don't worry, we handled it." "Handled what exactly?" I asked, my voice flat. Tyler, smugly, pulled a folded paper from his back pocket. "We had the house title transferred to my name. It's already done. You're going to need to be out by Friday, but no hard feelings, right? We'll give you time to grab your stuff. I stood there, unmoving, taking in their audacity, their smug self-assurance. My heart wasn't racing, I wasn't panicking. A quiet, almost amused smile touched my lips. They truly thought I was that stupid. You really think I'd let that happen? I asked. Tyler laughed, genuinely amused. It's already happening, dude. You've been living in fantasy land for too long. Mom stepped in, softening her tone. We're not trying to be cruel, Aiden. It's just practical. Tyler can manage the property. Maybe flip it. You've got your own place anyway. This way, everyone wins. I didn't argue. I simply nodded slowly. Got it. 2 days later, they returned, this time with a moving truck and 2 hired movers. I had been expecting them. They pulled into the driveway, laughing and shouting, Tyler. Sipping coffee in the passenger seat while Mom directed the movers toward the front door. But then they saw the porch. I was standing there, arms crossed, beside a tall man in a navy suit. He held a thick folder that bore the name of my trust, a name they wouldn't recognize yet. A badge was clipped to his belt. He was from the county office of property records. They froze. Tyler stepped out first, confusion clouding his face. What's going on? I said nothing. The man in the suit, Mr. Lavin, cleared his throat with the calm authority of someone who had dealt with such theatrics countless times. Are you Tyler Green? He asked. Tyler frowned, clearly thrown. Yeah, who's asking? I'm with the county office of property records, Mr. Lavin stated, stepping forward slightly. I'm here on behalf of the legal trustee of the East Thornhill estate. That's this property. He gestured behind him at the house. I have documentation showing the deed has been held in a trust since April of last year under the management of Aiden Green. Any claims made regarding the property's ownership since that date, including a fraudulent title transfer, are not just invalid, but criminally prosecutable. Tyler's face drained of all color. Fraudulent? He muttered, looking to Mom. What is he talking about? Mom stepped forward, her lips tight. There must be some mistake. We had a lawyer look at the old deed. It was still in Grandpa's name. We assumed. You assumed wrong. I interjected, finally breaking my silence. I never left the property in my name directly. It's owned by a trust. That's why you couldn't find any record in the public logs. You went to some shady title mill and tried to fake a transfer based on an outdated document. Mr. Lavin nodded. I've already filed a fraud report on the attempted title claim. Normally, we'd send a warning first, but given the circumstances, bringing movers, threatening occupancy, trying to evict the legal trustee, we're skipping straight to enforcement. Tyler blinked. Enforcement? I turned slightly toward him, speaking plainly. It means if you set 1 foot in this house without my permission again, you're trespassing. And if you try to tamper with the trust or any of its assets, you're looking at charges multiple. For a long, awkward second, no one spoke. The movers stood frozen between their truck and the porch, looking at each other as if they'd stumbled into a minefield. One coughed, slowly backing away toward the van. Tyler finally found his voice. You're seriously doing this to family? My voice was calm, unnervingly so. Family? You showed up here with a forged title and a moving crew. You tried to steal my home. The one thing Grandpa and Grandma wanted me to have. Don't talk to me about family. Mom's jaw clenched. They were confused, Aiden. They didn't understand. No, I cut her off sharply. You didn't understand. You thought I'd be the same pushover I was at 20. The kid you could guilt into giving up his weekend to babysit Tyler's drama, or float alone because you just needed it this once. But I'm not that kid anymore. I learned, I listened, and I prepared. Mr. Lavin added, flipping through his folder. Also, just so it's clear, we've alerted the local precinct. If either of you attempt to return under the guise of any property claim, there will be a file ready to go, civil and criminal. Tyler's eyes flashed, but he said nothing, turning to the movers. We're leaving now. He didn't look at me again. Mom lingered for a half second, her mouth slightly open, as if to utter one last manipulation, but no words came out. She followed him without another sound. The truck pulled out of the driveway, its taillights disappearing down the hill. The quiet that settled then was heavy, the kind that follows a confrontation years in the making. Mr. Lavin handed me a copy of the filed report and left. I stood there for a long time on the same porch where I used to sit with Grandpa, listening to him talk about knowing your people. Don't judge them by what they say in a moment, he'd advised. Judge them by what they do when they think you're not watching. He was right. I had watched, and I had finally acted. But that wasn't the end. 3 days later, a formal, typed letter arrived from a different lawyer hired by my mother. In it, she claimed emotional distress and argued that as a direct descendant, she had a moral and familial right to a portion of the estate. She demanded compensation for her mental anguish caused by being excluded, attaching a list of reasonable reparations: $150,000 in cash, joint ownership of the family home, and a monthly allowance until further notice. I stared at the paper, numb at first. Then my hands began to shake, not with fear, but with fury. She wasn't finished. And now, neither was I. I read that letter 6 times, each pass deepening the chilling realization. My own mother had tried to bill me for not letting her and Tyler steal what my grandparents had specifically entrusted to me. It wasn't even the money. It was the sheer entitlement, the audacity to call their attempted theft a misunderstanding one day, then send a formal demand for $150,000 the next, as if this were a mere business dispute. The phrase familial obligation echoed loudest, as if loyalty flowed only one way, upward toward them, as if I was born to give and they were born to take. I didn't react immediately. I knew better than to act emotionally. I called Mr. Lavin, who connected me with Sonia Cruz, a sharp estate attorney in her early 40s. Soft-spoken but razor-focused, she was the kind of person who didn't bother bluffing. I gave her everything: the trust documents, my mother's lawyer's letter, even screenshots of Tyler's next chapter social media posts. Within a day, Sonia filed a formal cease and desist against both of them. The message was unequivocal. The trust was airtight, legally shielded, and they had no standing. But Sonia didn't stop there. She dug deeper, uncovering that Tyler had forged multiple signatures for the bogus title transfer, even using a fake notary stamp and filing it through a sketchy online registry in another state, hoping it would escape local scrutiny. Sonia contacted a fraud investigator with the county DA's office. It turned out they were already investigating that very registry for other forged filings. Tyler had unwittingly become the low-hanging fruit on their case file. I still didn't tell them I knew. I wanted them to keep digging their own hole. And dig they did. 2 weeks after the cease and desist, another letter arrived, this one from my mother directly. Typed, but unmistakably her voice. It was laden with passive-aggressive phrases like, "After all I've done for you, you were always the quiet one, and I raised you to be better than this." She ended with, "You can end this all right now by just doing the right thing. Family should never need lawyers to settle what love and understanding can resolve." I didn't respond. Sonia advised against it. Instead, I forwarded the letter to her, and it became another piece in the growing file we were assembling, ready for a restraining order if needed. Then came the kicker. One morning, I found a folded flyer jammed into my door handle. It wasn't addressed, but I recognized Tyler's handwriting instantly. "Hope you're enjoying playing King of the Castle," it read. "Just remember who's really got your back when the money runs dry." I laughed, a quiet, tired laugh that signals an awareness of how utterly outgrown someone is. I scanned the note, added it to the file, and made a decision. I wasn't just going to defend myself anymore. I was going to push back. Tyler was already under scrutiny for real estate fraud, but Sonia pointed out that proving intentional malice or harassment could escalate things. While criminal courts would handle their part, there was another arena where Tyler could be truly damaged: his credit, his record, his job. He had recently landed a position at a boutique real estate firm, one of those flashy places that prioritized Instagram aesthetics over compliance. I did some digging and discovered they prided themselves on transparency and ethical property transfers. Would they be proud of an employee who tried to steal a house with forged paperwork? But I didn't act impulsively. I waited. Then something unexpected happened. My cousin Megan, whom I hadn't spoken to in years, messaged me on Facebook. "Hey, can we talk? Your mom's been calling people in the family saying some things. I figured I should let you know." We met for coffee the next morning. Megan, always the straight shooter, showed me texts, voicemails, and a group chat with other cousins. My mother had launched an all-out smear campaign, claiming I had manipulated Grandpa in his final years, convincing him to change the will while he was mentally declining. She even hinted I'd taken advantage of him emotionally, legally, maybe, even medically. I felt sick. This wasn't about the house or the money or even Tyler. This was about control. My mother couldn't stand that I had said no, that I had protected something from her grasp. Now, she intended to ruin me for it. Megan looked at me across the table. I don't believe her. Neither do Jamie or Chris. But she's not going to stop. She's calling everyone. I didn't sleep much that night. If she was willing to lie to the entire family, to assassinate my character just to pressure me into giving up what was legally mine, then I had to finish this. Not just for me, but to ensure she and Tyler never did this to anyone else again. What I did next didn't end with lawyers. I spent the next 2 days in my study, planning. The trust was legally impenetrable, that much was secure. But their smear campaign was already infecting the extended family. Vague texts from distant relatives. Just wanted to check in, heard some stuff. Hope it's not true, confirmed Mom's relentless efforts. She wasn't just trying to take the estate. She wanted to destroy my reputation so thoroughly that no one would ever believe my side of the story. If I let that happen, I knew the next steps: pressure from relatives, whispered guilt, gaslighting from every corner of the family tree. Eventually, they'd try to force me to be the bigger person for the sake of peace. I saw the trap, and I refused to walk into it. I built my own. Sonia helped me prepare a legal declaration, a concise statement of facts supported by all the evidence we'd gathered: the forged title application, the fake notary stamp, their manipulative letters, the attempted property seizure, and the details of the smear campaign. I included scanned screenshots from Megan's messages, voicemails from my mom calling me a greedy manipulator, and the copy of her lawyer's ridiculous $150,000 demand. But I didn't just file it away. I sent a clean, easy-to-read version to every relative my mom had called. My accompanying message was brief. Hi. I know some things have been said recently, and before you draw any conclusions, I want you to have the facts, backed by documents, not stories. I've attached everything you need to see. After this, I won't be discussing it again. If you believe me, great. If not, that's your choice, but at least you'll be making it with the full truth in front of you. Then I hit send to 27 contacts. The fallout was instant. Within hours, I received 5 apologetic replies from relatives I hadn't spoken to in years. A few were utterly horrified. My Aunt Robin, who had doted on Tyler like he walked on water, called me that evening in tears. She had believed every word my mother said until she saw the forgery, the letter, the folder of proof. I didn't know, she sobbed. I swear I didn't know, Aiden. I'm so sorry. I didn't ask for apologies. I simply told her I hoped she understood now why I had done what I did. Not everyone reacted that way. 3 relatives, all on my mom's side, doubled down, accusing me of manipulating the narrative or fabricating documents. I knew I couldn't win them all, but for every one of those, I had 5 more people reach out with gratitude for sharing the truth. Then came the part I'd been waiting for. I anonymously contacted Tyler's boss, submitting a tip through their internal ethics line. It wasn't a vague warning. It was a full PDF report, meticulously organized and labeled with exhibits, detailing the attempted fraudulent transfer of the house, the misuse of legal documents, and the potential real estate crime he'd committed using their name and reputation. I thought it might take a week. It took 2 days. Tyler's name was removed from the company's website by the end of the week. According to a contact in the local real estate association, a college acquaintance now in compliance, the firm had launched an internal audit the moment they saw the complaint. They found other inconsistencies in Tyler's client files. He wasn't just fired, he was reported to the state board. His license was frozen pending investigation. He tried to call me the day it happened, 11 missed calls. I didn't answer a single one. That weekend, I saw a new post on his Instagram. A black screen with the words, "Some people will destroy your life and pretend they're the victim." He didn't name me, but he didn't have to. Everyone who mattered already knew the truth. But it wasn't over yet. 2 days later, I received a formal notice from the county. A warrant was being issued. The forged title application had triggered legal consequences. Tyler was being charged with attempted property fraud and submitting falsified documents to a government agency. I stared at the notice for a long time, numb. This wasn't the ending I ever wanted. I hadn't sought to destroy him, but he had forced my hand. And now there were consequences. He was arraigned quietly. No headlines, no big scene, just a court date, a lawyer he couldn't afford, and a future full of legal headaches. He wouldn't go to prison, likely probation, fines, maybe community service. But the record would follow him. Jobs would be harder to find, trust harder to rebuild. The next time he tried to rebrand himself as a savvy real estate guy, this would be the skeleton in his closet. As for my mother, she went silent after the evidence went public. Completely silent. She didn't reach out, didn't apologize, didn't ask for money again. But one afternoon, about 2 months later, a letter arrived, not from her, but from her attorney. A carefully worded note stating she was withdrawing all pending legal claims regarding the estate and respectfully requesting no further contact. In other words, she gave up. She knew she lost. I felt no joy, no triumph. I felt free. That night, I went to the old Victorian and walked the halls slowly, barefoot on the hardwood floors. The air smelled faintly of cedar and old books. The house was quiet, peaceful mine. I stood in the den where Grandpa used to sit in his big leather armchair and read the paper. I kept it safe. I whispered into the quiet room, just like I promised. I think he would have been proud. In the end, I didn't just keep the house. I kept my dignity. I kept my future. Tyler lost his career. My mother lost her narrative. And I gained something they never expected, the strength to stop being their victim. For the first time in my life, I wasn't the quiet one anymore.